My name is Aliya, and I've been teaching and a foundation year at an undergrad level, and where the students actually come in, and it's the first year, and they are stepping into that undergrad level and trying to understand the education of art and design, and where they're going to go from there onwards. So creating an interest and engaging them right from the beginning on an online platform became quite intensive in a way, because all of that, the change and the shift happened in a very sudden way. And at our institutes, and I'm sure at many others, people were not kind of equipped to deal with that. So whatever kind of digital platforms, or we can say the apps and things which you could identify, everyone, we all jumped into those. And I remember dealing with this digital platform as a Google Classroom, as an LMS system, quite a daunting task for me initially. But yes, slowly and gradually, as teachers, we got the hang of that. So primarily, my paper is based on the changes and the learning methods and the teaching pedagogies which has influenced the process of art making and vice versa, and how the lack of hands-on engagement has affected the craft making practices. So there are similarities and there are familiarities with the both platforms. Either we are in the physical space or in the digital space. So similarities, the techniques were that we were on the whiteboard, we were on the chalkboard, and now we are virtually using the same guiding tools and discussions, and giving briefs and taking them forward. And other platforms which we incorporated in that, Jamboard, Mentimeter, all others. But the methodology was not introduced or perhaps devised during that process. So I think it was all give and take, and everybody was kind of creating different modes and methodologies to engage students. Engaging students on a virtual platform, that was initially the main intention or the main step, which as a faculty or as teachers, we were facing challenge with. Then the other methodologies which we included, that how we can create different videos or tutorials or giving the PowerPoint presentations through the Google Classroom. So the process of creating that virtual from physical to virtual remained the same, didn't change much, only the technology part which was introduced, that process has actually changed the thinking and the teaching methodologies. Communicating and sharing our ideas, that process remained the same. It didn't make any change that what other app or a process or LMS system we were using at that time. Timeline and individual student feedback, class participation, Q&A, and all of these aspects remain the same, whether we were on the virtual or on the physical. In the virtual platforms, like I mentioned, we use multiple apps and technical aspects so that we can take them forward, what other instruction modes which we can take. From a role which I really found during this pandemic and after pandemic, the role of a teacher has sort of majorly changed. Rather than we becoming, just giving the information or parting knowledge, we also became how to facilitate, the students and their ability to engage and use the easy access, and how to make that the interactive studio workable. I think I haven't mentioned that in my introduction. I've been teaching a 3D practical studio which is based on, working with materials and different kinds of machineries and equipment. So how that role has shifted, we are still struggling to understand. Okay, were the students able to, deal or execute the projects that successfully? Like we all have been talking about for the past 2 days, that different alternatives, like using recycled paper, found objects, and whatever available in their environment. This is what students were dealing with. The objectives and the multiple outcomes, the kind of on teaching both spaces also remain the same, but just the platform kind of changes. That how we were instructing them face to face, the kind of language we were using, that how we were able to communicate, and multiple aspects in that physical environment, they were sort of compromised during these virtual and digital platforms. So we, like I've been teaching a practical studio. So we started finding alternatives, that how the peer interaction and learning through observation and learning by doing, how we can bring that aspect, which is a physical teaching environment, into a digital. So that way, for that reason, we started students to, creating groups, using WhatsApp groups and other kind of different platforms through Google Chat and video calls and all. So the peer interaction in the physical space, which they were kind of missing, that sort of addressed through these different aspects of digital applications. Another aspect which I found during this pandemic time, that the community building we were sort of forcing our students to create those links and bridges and those gaps in a way. But in the natural or physical environment, we don't need to ask our students to create or to communicate with each other and build community and gain confidence. But in the virtual world, it just became in a way a slightly harder task, so that students were not able to virtually and communicate with each other that openly and that closely. That picture I have inserted here is that initially, when we all started teaching on the virtual platform, the use of camera, how that affected the way we communicate with each other. Now, I'm just hearing my students talking about, or discussions on. So physical interaction really hindered in that way. Initially, we did not ask our students to, turn on their cameras because there were internet issues, technical issues, even the devices which they were using, they were not that able to support those systems as well. So the community building in a virtual world, yes, in a way it worked, but the concept of seeing each other and interacting with each other was really kind of compromised. How the diversity could be addressed, that we trying to still establish in the virtual world, creating and making communication and all that. We are also in a virtual world. We say that yes, these platforms and the social media platforms are also supporting in that way, but the actual class environment where students interact and engage is kind of a more I would say not say compromise, but sort of left out in the virtual world of teaching. and even the collaborative assessment with the co-teachers in the virtual world, all of that. So the first half of my paper was, kind of addressing that how teaching and teaching pedagogies were established and sort of applied in a ad hoc way. Ad hoc, why am I saying? Because none of us were able to, give a solid answer at that time. And now, after 2 years, we are able to make these connections and joining parts, that how the virtual and these different platforms where everyone else has been talking about can be connected. As the students are kind of more related, more comfortable with the digital tools, so the presentations and the mode of communication through a 2D surface became very easy, and they were much more organized and sharing all these their ideas and how they were photographing and how they were communicating the made model. But as we move forward, the idea of working with the material, that kind of in all that scenario was lost, and also a very particular aspect of scale and proportion. I mean, if you're looking or working on a smaller scale, how that is projected in a photograph and how is it projected on a 2D surface, that also kind of, we struggled with. But looking at the students, how they use the digital platform to communicate, to present, and to see and share their ideas and how the exploration has been done, excellent. I mean, really, they moved forward with that and they embraced it really well. And this is where I'm talking about trying to make a comparison where on a physical space, the documentation of projects and presenting those projects was in that format. So even though the students were aware and how they were taking and understanding the use of these digital platforms, but as we were, as teachers and facilitators, we were not aware. So we were not actually incorporating those new platforms for to let the students work and grow further. So that's the I just wanted to share as that that how the educator or as a facilitator and the learners and the teachers or a person who is imparting knowledge, the mental and the physical health, how that we haven't addressed yet. We have just put questions there, but we are not too sure that how in future these long screen hours and working on a two-dimensional surfaces, how we are going to able to understand that the what we can say, the next step, or perhaps after 10 years, we might be able to understand that how the thinking, or even the critical thinking, or even the concept development of the coming future or the new generation is going to change. So, I mean, in my paper, there are no solid conclusions yet, because we are all, in this time together and struggling and trying to find and, create that understanding that where and how these platforms can be used for the 3D or the practical or the material, the studios or the courses which are actually connected with the craft or skill or making. For the two-dimensional, with critical thinking and communicating your ideas through illustrations and drawings, that has been very well, I would say even much better resolved. But working with the materiality and three-dimensionality of the object, how in the physical and the real space these can be created, that is still, a question mark, and we're trying to, through these discussions and all, we're trying to find an answer into that. I think the kind of the fundamental change, which in future, which we have to look at as craft, as skill, as a studios, which are with practical base and working by doing and learning by doing, and that needs to be addressed on the digital platform. For this reason, for these specific reasons, I think we're still a huge gap has been there. Regardless of that how well students were able to communicate and exchange ideas and briefings and tutorials and videos and all, but working by hand and feeling the physicality. I remember yesterday, Professor, I hope I'm not pronouncing his name wrong, Shiri something, he also mentioned. So working with the actual material and holding a pen and how much that ink needs to be loaded in, how these experiences can be imparted on these virtual platforms. I think that's it. Thank you.